The fear of the Great Depression of 1929, when America was drowned in hunger, poverty, and ruin. It was morning, but the streets of the city didn't have the hustle and bustle one would expect in the heart of a developed country. There was no milkman calling out, no children running towards school, no sound of newspaper boys hurrying along. The shutters of shops were pulled down, covered in dust and cobwebs. Heavy locks hung on the big gates of factories, and smoke hadn't risen from their tall chimneys for months. At the doors of their homes, people stood staring blankly at the street, as if waiting for a miracle. Someone to call them to work, someone to hand them an envelope of money, or perhaps someone to come and say, "Everything is fine now." But no one came. The air didn't carry the aroma of bread baking, but rather the sting of hunger. The innocent sparkle in children's eyes had vanished, replaced by a question, "Will we get something to eat today?" In people's hands were not job offer letters, but bank notices, "Vacate the house, repay the debt." This was not a scene from a movie, but the real picture of America in 1929, the era the world remembers as the Great Depression. And today, almost a century later, Donald Trump's words have once again revived the shadow of that fear. Today we will discuss this topic in detail. But before that, if you are new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you get updates of all our new videos first. So, without further delay, let's begin today's discussion. First, let us tell you how a country that was once the world leader in industry, science, and technology suddenly sunk into the deep darkness of hunger, poverty, and unemployment. To find the answer, we have to go back a little, right to the end of the First World War. The year was 1918, and the First World War had ended. On the world map, many nations stood in ruins. The great cities of Europe had turned into rubble, roads were broken, bridges had collapsed, and millions of people were homeless. Yet, amid this destruction, a few countries made massive profits, America and Japan. During the war, factories there ran 24 hours a day producing weapons, ammunition, machinery, and essential supplies. Production had increased so much that even after the war ended, smoke continued to rise from the chimneys. Factory owners thought, "Now these machines will run even faster. Now we'll become even richer." But they didn't think about one crucial fact, that the very demand which had given them such profits would disappear once the war was over. When the war ended, Europe's pockets were empty. They had no money left to buy new goods. American warehouse filled up with goods, but there were no buyers. A businessman recalling that time once said, "Our warehouse were full of wheat, but there was no price for it in the market. We were making machines, but no one was coming to buy them. We kept producing, and it was our production itself that drowned us." The situation in agriculture was no different. During the war, when fields lay abandoned, production was low, and prices were high. But by the war's end, farming had recovered, yields increased, but demand fell. There was such an oversupply of wheat, corn, barley, and other crops that global grain prices began to collapse. Farmers couldn't even recover their costs. Many borrowed money to buy seeds and fertilizer, harvested their crops, but when they went to sell them in the market, prices were so low that their debt only grew. They thought they could make up their losses by producing more, but the opposite happened. The more they produced, the cheaper grain became, buyers kept decreasing, and grain stored in warehouse began to rot. It was a tragic irony. People in the country were hungry, yet the grain in the market wouldn't sell. And then came 24 October 1929, a day known as Black Tuesday. On that day, share prices on the New York Stock Exchange began to fall, and within hours they had dropped by as much as 50%. Corporate profits plunged by over 90%. Billions of dollars in capital vanished in an instant. People who had invested their entire life savings in the stock market were left bankrupt within hours. One broker committed suicide, dozens of investors declared bankruptcy, and thousands sat on the streets clutching their investment papers. Papers that were now nothing more than worthless scraps. By this time, America had already lent huge sums to many European countries. When signs of the Depression began to appear, America announced that it would no longer lend money to any country. This caused major banks in Europe to collapse. The value of Britain's pound sterling began to fall, unemployment in Germany skyrocketed, and the economy of Latin America also began to crumble. Inside America, the situation became even worse. Banks stopped issuing loans, and those who had already borrowed were forced to repay through aggressive collection measures. Farmers, laborers, and shopkeepers alike saw their homes and lands auctioned off. The value of the dollar kept falling, and people were unable to repay their debts. Between 1929 and 1933, more than 4,000 banks shut down. Around 1,10,000 companies closed their doors forever. Unemployment was so severe that while 1.6 million people were jobless in 1929, by 1933 the number had soared to 14 million, meaning 1 out of every 4 people had no work at all. Along with unemployment came hunger and disease. In 1931, nearly 100 people in New York hospitals died from starvation. Diseases spread due to malnutrition, and 1/3 of children became undernourished. There was neither medicine nor doctors available for treatment. By 1932, more than 2,50,000 people had lost their homes. Those unable to pay rent or mortgages began spending nights on the streets, in parks, and alongside railway tracks. On the outskirts of cities, shanty towns made of cardboard and metal sheets sprang up, which people began calling Hoovervilles, named after President Herbert Hoover, whom they blamed for their suffering. Some people, just to escape hunger, began getting themselves arrested. At least in jail, they could get a warm room, a bed, and food. In 1932, nearly 2 million people roamed from place to place looking for work and spent their nights in jail. This dark era lasted for almost a decade. Then in 1939, the Second World War began. Factories started running again, and the demand for weapons, vehicles, and ships rose sharply. The unemployed began finding jobs, and even women started working in factories. Though the war pushed the world into devastation, for America it became the turning point that pulled the country out of the Great Depression. And today, when Trump says that America could once again face such a situation, it is not just a warning, it is the echo of a history that once pushed a wealthy nation into hunger, poverty, and helplessness.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources news from various news